Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Keisha from the Fuzzy Cow Podcast. Keisha, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, looking forward to this conversation. You and I met in Miami recently at a conference, and so I've been excited to have you on. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your background? So before we jump into your podcast and what led to that, let's talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, my background is in journalism. I'm a journalist by craft and by trade. Been writing in some capacity literally since before I was a teenager. There used to be a news bureau that was global, based in England, called Children's Express. And then they went through some restructuring and they became Y Press. And when I was 11 years old, shortly before 2000, September, 9/11 attacks happened, I joined the bureau when I was 11 years old as a reporter, and kind of just really cut my teeth on that all the way up until I was 18. Got to interview people like Colin Powell, and got to go to Benin and talk about democracy and all types of things. So I've kind of just always been into social justice issues. I've kind of always been into exploratory and just, having those conversations and creating pathways for those conversations to be had. Um, also then that kind of as an adult translated into me having my own publishing company. I lived in Atlanta for a long time, and so I had some magazine imprints as well as I helped other authors go from, conception to execution. And in 2019, I moved away from Atlanta. And kind of just was like, looking for something new, looking for a new way to reapproach my creativity. That was really kind of when we started seeing the first real waves. 2017 a little bit, but definitely in 2019, when we started seeing the first real waves of like, big institutional, entities laying off their writers and whatnot. So it was kind of like, maybe there's a new way for me to apply myself. And I had always had an interest in technology. I actually used to make like HTML tutorials and stuff like that when I was, so coding was always something that I kind of just had like a fleeting interest in. And then I went to, because of COVID, here in the state of Indiana, they did give labor workforce development grants to kind of help people develop that skill set as a cybersecurity or a web developer. So I went to a boot camp. I became a full stack web developer. When I got done doing that, the original intention was again to go back into writing as a technical writer. But just kind of through networking on Twitter and kind of just immersing myself in the Web3 hashtag and in the blockchain hashtag, I just found a really big community, a global community. A lot of people kind of let me know, like, wow, we need communicators. If you're a writer in this space, maybe you should think about doing something a little bit bigger than just the technical articles. And I was blessed to find my first position in the sector at Ledger as their lead content developer, basically on their Ledger developer portal. And from there, I was asked to be their North American DevRel lead. And so I kind of went from Canada to Mexico, just advocating and evangelizing ledgers and wallet security and safety. And that kind of was my entry into Web3. So that was kind of how I came to really learn from a functional capacity and a lifestyle capacity about blockchain, and about crypto, as a economic tool for my own mobility, as well as how I think it can be applied and why, everybody should have a seat at the conversation about crypto.
I love that. Entry into this industry is usually through smaller companies or smaller, and you jumped right in there with Ledger.
Yeah, it was a blessing for sure. But I don't, I definitely think it was a collaborative effort. And I definitely, again, credit a lot to being just a global citizen and the opportunity that blockchain has allowed me to have that. It's amazing what a cell phone can do. It's amazing what a spaces can do, and it's amazing the world that you can build for yourself. So for me, it was really, truly, I don't think if I had, not put myself out there and kind of been, committed to like building community and making new friends, I don't know what my trajectory would have looked like.
Yeah. But you pretty much set yourself up for success because that was a real need in this industry is there's really great developers and there's a lot of people wanting to know more. And there's that gap in the middle. Like how do they communicate? You can put a great developer on a live stream and they could just bomb it. Nobody understand what they're saying. Right. So being able to have that, you understand the coding, you understand the tech talk, and it seems like you're also able to put that in terms where people can understand, and that's it's very valuable in this industry right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. I mean, to me, and I guess we can get into this like later on, but right, like when we speak about adoption, especially when we speak about mass adoption, which is everybody's favorite thing, I have so many thoughts about why we haven't moved that needle yet or what's lacking. And a lot of it is culture. A lot of it is correspondence. A lot of it is comfortability, right? Like we don't really always make people comfortable in the space. I personally feel like normie is a slur, or it's almost on the verge of being a slur, right? Like I am a regular person. I have regular needs, and I think also the other really interesting thing about crypto, even though I come from a middle class background myself, I think the other really interesting thing about crypto, specifically in the United States context, but definitely in the global, more grand scheme of everything, is that it really is the middle class of every nation of the world talking to each other. And when it's like that, you miss out on so much, innovation, ingenuity, insight, you know what I mean? And just ideation onto how we can apply this technology, right? I mean, it's a bunch of people with caviar and champagne problems. You know what I mean? And I think that we can kind of see that in what's been produced and what's been developed. So for me, I think in so many ways, identity is kind of what set me up for success because I already naturally inhabit a lot of those gaps, right? I am a Black woman. I am in a tech space. I do come from a community globally and domestically that just has language as a command, right? Like we just make things sound cool. You know what I mean? Like we've been doing like these types of things for a long time. So for me, it has been wonderful being so welcomed and kind of being able to bring that true, authentic, self that I am to this space and then kind of use that to go back and educate whoever, not just in my community, but whoever finds that more palpable.
Yeah, I've never thought of it in terms of it's basically been like middle classes all around the world talking. And it kind of takes me back to my early days of learning about Bitcoin, where I realized, it was solving problems that everybody had. But when I think about it, it was more important for those people in those countries that may just be emerging markets, third world countries that needed development, like they have zero access to financial institutions. It's not that someone won't let them in. There's just nothing in their area. But now with technology, we've got the marrying of basically cheap cheap Wi-Fi, low cost, almost no cost, cell phones, basic phones, and now people can participate that weren't even able to participate in any other financial market prior. So
100%. And I say, like, even as an African American person, right? Like, we oftentimes speak about the unbanked, right? Or those on the fringe. But I noticed that when a lot of my constituents, and a lot of my peers in this space are speaking about that again, they have a very specific idea of what they think that means, which is more like the housing of illicit funds or, more libertarian ways of making money that maybe the bank don't acknowledge. And it's like, well, I come from, a community where there are people who have had their credit score and their social security numbers ruined from childhood. You know what I mean? From parents. You know what I mean? Needing it, right? And so it's like, well, how could blockchain help them, right? How could infallible ledger, right? For future generations, help things like, credit fraud and identity theft and things like that. I mean, there are so many things, people who've been evicted, right? And being able to get their leases on a ledger, property management groups that are more predatory. Like there are 1,001 things that I can think of from my lived experience, right? That it's like, oh, wow, okay, perhaps this could have helped that person in that situation, or maybe this is a way that we can solve this problem. It does not take being in a developing nation to have, solutions that are underdeveloped, right? And again, I think that that's a lot of when I do the work that I do and I do the education work that I do and I do, like the podcast and stuff, that is the spark that I'm trying in the hook that I'm trying to provide, is that it's not about L1s and L2s and all the other jargon that we use. It's about real life. Like there are people who are dealing with things that a lot of people in this space can't even conceive of or fathom, and blockchain is the perfect answer.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I met someone early on in my journey too that was in the U.S. Since he was probably 2 or 3 years old. His family, came here illegally, and it wasn't. I think it was from actually one of the Middle Eastern countries, maybe like Iran or Afghanistan, if I remember right. Been here his whole life. I think it was Iran because it's anytime tried to get a bank account and put that, the original country it was from, was unable to get a bank account. And you're talking about a professional here that studied, was able to get a college degree through his own hard work, but then trouble getting a bank account, and Bitcoin was one of the things that saved him. Um, yeah, so you're right. I mean, I think unbanked. A lot of times we think of developing countries, third world nations, but really, there's people that could be in our backyard that are unbanked. And then
So many people in our backyards are unbanked. Yeah.
there's the immediate term underbanked, right? I mean, the people that don't have access to the same tools. I mean, just the accredited investor system in the U.S. is rigged for the wealthy. It's if I don't make this certain amount of money, or if I don't have this certain amount of net worth, I can't invest in certain things, and that's rigged from the beginning. It's saying the wealthy can get wealthier, but someone trying to pull themselves up and do the right thing can't make their own decisions.
And shout out to Coinbase for just launching the new Bitcoin backed loans, right? And like these are like the types of things that we're talking about, social good, especially as we see in the face of all this, governmental change, right, or whatever you want to call it. Um, what happens to the nonprofit? What happens to the endowments and what I mean? And again, blockchain is a great space for public goods and social funding, right? Like there's just I could go on and on and on and on as we all could in the space, right? And we like especially those of us that are into regenerative finance, right? But you go on and on and on and on about things that could be switched out and likely, it's so funny. 2008, even 2015, if you would have said things like the instability of the dollar, or if you would have said things like massive governmental overhaul, or if you would have said, you know what I mean? Like, people would still be looking at you like you have on the tinfoil hat. Now, it's like, so do you understand what we've been saying? Like, this is exactly what we mean, So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had quite a few tell me that. I mean, I finally took that orange pill for Bitcoin back in 2016. And that's when I started talking about inflation and the dollar and the banking system. I think we all had some kind of level of knowledge that governments were corrupt because there was no oversight. And yeah, I mean, I was told I was crazy, I was nuts, I was going to lose all my money, all these different things, and some of those people have also come back to apologize.
I'm sure.
Holy crap, you were right. And
Yeah.
2019, I can remember I was talking hard and heavy because I was watching the banking system hard, and I'm like, we're headed for catastrophic inflation. There's gonna have to be some major event that's gonna like inject something into this banking system, or we're done any day. And I remember that thing that post was back in September 2019. And then what happened a few months later? COVID, and then all this cash infusion, and which was from money that was just printed, and that led to inflation. So
Yeah. Yeah. And been that way since been that way, and that's the thing is like, unfortunately, none of these things have happened in what I mean, out of the blue. Like none of this stuff just popped out of the concrete, like literally. Like this has been like decades upon decades of conversation about this, guys. So yeah.
yeah, because a lot of people that I met in the early days were of that libertarian mindset, and so when I started to look back, it's like this is, especially in our world in the United States, we both live in the US, right? And this is not a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue. This has been going on through multiple different generations, parties, people switching parties. This has nothing to do with that. It's just a system that's fundamentally broken. I used to tell people all the time too, we could replace like everybody that's corrupt in government tomorrow, and if you don't change the systems of checks and balances and transparency, give it a few years and it'll be right back to that. New people, same corruption, right? Because it's opportunist. And that's the difference. I don't know, I'm sure you see too, where we can leverage this technology to be more transparent, be able to see what's actually happening and who's doing what, because a lot of people are opportunists. And if there's an opportunity where nobody's looking and they can stick their hand in the cookie jar, they're going to do it. But if there's no opportunity, they'll just go on. So yeah, there's a lot of things. It's so much more. That's what people hear today and what they think crypto is. So I want to, like, this conversation is great. We'll probably come back to it, but I want to take some time for you to tell us about the Fuzzy Cow podcast. One, the name, right? I love the name. I'd like to know the story behind that, and then what are you doing with that podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So the Fuzzy Cow podcast, where whether it's a bear or a bull, we're crypto news you can trust. Essentially, we are a podcast platform, Web3 entertainment media company. The entertainment is in the education, right? Edutainment, as they say. But really, our mission is twofold. First, on the very simple, surface, to give tidbits of news, credible news, non-partisan, non-influence, non-shilly news about crypto, as it's happening in real time. Of course, so much happens every day. You can't cover everything, but just making sure that there is a consistent source of, reference for these things as our industry, the topography of it is being shaped. And then the second part is a really educational platform. We have, different various types of content, both audio, visual, and static. So whether it's flashcards or it's our podcast episodes, or it's the memo that we do, where we just break down different tips and tricks. Of course, it's not financial advice, but suggestions and perspective on, how to engage safely. So that people can be more confident, and it does have that colloquial spin to it. It's not like inherently urban or anything but it's definitely layman's speak for everybody outside of the sector who's not super savvy, again, to the lingo. And it's just meant to be regular conversation for regular people about this financial tool. And we are 6 months old, but we've been really super blessed. We just came back, as you said, from we were going to make in Miami. We were at Money 2020 as a media partner. Probably be there again. And we just keep going. I mean, again, it's brand new, but we just got done with our first season as well. So we're launching our second season, which will be presented by Octant. If you guys are not familiar with Octant, they're an amazing social goods platform. Shout out to Octant, www.octant.app. But yeah, like that's kind of just the main thing. I mean, and again, kind of spoke earlier about identity. Kind of leaning into my femininity, leaning into my cultural background, and just like making crypto cool. You know what I mean, and making it comfortable, and that's all. Just making it something that's less threatening, and less convoluted.
Absolutely. What you said there, I loved. I mean, the ability to, I mean, just going through the news, I don't think people realize that there's so much out there. Just having a source or someone that can help simplify some of it, cut through some of the crap, right? And you're unbiased because even I'll tell you this. I mean, every crypto news entity, like the major ones, right? The CoinDesk, the Cointelegraphs, the CNNs, all the others, every one of them, they have an element of shilling in some of their posts. Like, this is why this is poised to go up 300% in the next 3 months or 6 months. And just a lot of stuff like that. Highlighting, you and I were talking about this prior to recording, but some of the sensationalism around meme coins, they'll highlight a wallet address that maybe put in $10,000 and made 2 million on a meme coin investment, and that causes more and more people just to jump in thinking that's for them, not realizing that was probably an insider or somebody that sniped that project, and the chances of your everyday person being able to hit that is just like trying to play a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of like the whole thing. Like for us, it's like, we like to not operate from within the space of the burden of knowledge, right? Which so many crypto everything does, right? Which is to assume the people that are looking at you and engaging with you know what you're talking about. For us, it's very much like, okay, let's take a step back and let's talk about what a wallet is, right? Let's build on top of that and talk about fintech, and then talk about decentralized finance, right? Like then let's build on top of that and talk about how you get your first token into a wallet, and then how you're able to then trade that token, and what the process of trading even means. What is a smart contract, right? Because I think that even for, and I think maybe this is like, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe this is like an industry secret, but to be all the way 1 trillion% real, I don't think a lot of people in the industry are completely intimate, familiar, or secure with all the information about all the acronyms and all the different technology. It's a lot of people that are kind of just like, shaking their head thinking that one day they'll hear that sentence that makes sense in context for what they're hearing, right? And it's like, no, like it's okay. We don't want to be condescending about it. It's cool. Like if you don't know, like there's somewhere for you to go and you can find that information out. You know what I mean? And again, also too, I think that to your point about the meme coin conversation and like the shilling, for us, it's about reputable people and projects, right? Every single person that's involved in this, that's still here 10 toes down, after 12 months plus, right? You've probably been grifted. You've probably been, you know what I mean, involved in some negative scenarios, as I would describe them, right? And so, again, having somebody that, and having access to a resource, like a real living resource that is just very clear, very, direct with you, very frank. It's a lot of it is my personality injected into it, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, I just have for you what I have for you, which is the truth, right? And not like being against meme coins, not being for meme coins, but giving people the power of information so that they can have truly. Because sometimes when you say do your own research, especially in the land of AI slop that we live in now with Google and stuff like that, what does that even mean? What does doing your own research mean when all the information is, it's all messed up. It's just literally it's slop. So yeah, we need each other. Each person reach one, and so I'm just kind of happy to kind of fill that void, and hope that who needs it, they can find it.
Yeah. Look, as an educator myself, and I feel the same way, and I love that. Same thing. I mean, I'm not going to discourage somebody to not buy a meme coin or any other crypto, but giving them some information to ponder. And then I think the thing that's missing most, and you probably see this as well, is is that a bad investment? That depends. If you want to put your life savings in it and hope that it'll give you life changing money, it's probably a bad decision. But if you understand risk management and risk assessment, then you understand, okay, I may still play this meme coin. Like if I'm the person that just got the information, okay, maybe I'm gonna play this meme coin game, but you know what? If I went into the casino tomorrow and I lost $250, I'd be fine with it walking out because I had some fun or it was worth the shot. Then that's what you're gonna put in there. You're not gonna put your life savings, and those are the stories that become tragic. Is people that either do that or they fall for some of these scams. Like as you mentioned, a lot of the grifting. I mean that's what really spawned me to really dive head on into education. Is I fell for a scam that sounded amazing in 2016, and I realized that this is until we improve education, improve and I don't know how you feel, but the two things I've always said, and people heard me for years talk about this, two things that are really drive adoption that are simple. Now, there's a lot more that goes into those, but it's simple user interfaces and education, right? We've got to hide the complexities from the user. We've got to create those simple user interfaces, but then we also need to have some common sense education because you're right. People don't understand the jargon coming in. And I think that's why a lot of people don't come in because they hear all these terms they don't know about. Nobody takes the time to explain it to them. And so it's complicated.
It's context, right? I mean, blockchain in itself, it is a high mathematical science, right? And as a concept, when you start talking about nation states, et cetera, tokenomics, blah, 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 that is abstract, yes. But, the idea of, like you said, I read this article from this reputable, website or whatever, and it said something about this wallet and trading. And then I put in, I only make $50,000, right? And so I put in $5,000, or I put in $10,000. That's a different conversation, and you need a little bit of a different context, right? Well, first of all, we all need the same context, which is to your point, right? So much about any token is going to be about holding it. So before you even come into crypto looking for liquidity, you should first establish a baseline of patience for yourself, right? But nobody even ever has that conversation because everybody always sees it as truly like a get rich quick type thing, and especially when you have presidential heads, right? Leaders of governments getting in on the same thing. That is so confusing for somebody that doesn't know anything, right? And I think for me, when it comes to adoption, it's definitely convenience, right? So I think that's like that encapsulates a lot about what you're talking about like hiding the complexity from users. I think we spoke about in Miami, that when the telephone was invented, right, they weren't talking about transistors and stuff like that, right? They were talking about the ability to connect. Connection has always been key. It doesn't matter what kind of inorganic material we produce and what kind of cool thing it does. It'll still be people that it's helping and people that are responsible for delivering that, right? So people have to always stay in the frame and at the center of whatever it is that we're building and whatever it is that we're trying to whoever it is that we're trying to reach. So yeah, like I think convenience, right? Especially in the United States context, like it has to be convenient. It has to feel like the app. It has to, it has to feel like magic. And then I think the second thing for me is just, yeah, those two things, right? Just convenience and community, convenience and conversation, like making it convenience and giving people the proper context in that conversation. Like, but when I think about that, I do want to also be honest and say, like, I feel like sometimes, like, a lot of the language and a lot of the, like, commitment to, like, the non sequitur explanations is because, it's a community too. It is its own culture. It already has people there. And a lot of those people want to feel that way. They want to feel like they're a part of something, super futuristic, super out of reach, right? And those are the things that I think that we are kind of like, working against, right? It's not really, I get on a lot of calls or I do a lot of, I'm talking to a lot of projects and they're always like, oh, it's so hard to find builders. It's hard to find builders. And they really mean it's hard to find non-homogenous builders. And again, back to circle back around to the prior conversation, it's like, well, for me, it's not though. You know what I mean? Like I can on either hand think of 5 white developers, think of 5 black developers. I can think of women developers in Brazil, and so it's like some of it is by happenstance, right? But a lot of the circumstances I think are created. And I think that that's why for people like you and I, it's like, yes, we have to get outside of the silo and we have to make the effort to make sure that we're putting ourselves in front of everybody else. Like, it's not really about, for me at this point, being necessarily every crypto conference, which is why you'll find me in places like Mini 2020 or the DC Blockchain Summit, which is where we'll be at next, or maybe some of the more low key, kind of more quaint conferences, because that's where a lot of the real innovation and stuff is happening. That's where a lot of the real, the regular people are.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's so many people that are in this industry that are in this echo chamber where they're only focusing on people that are already into crypto, into Web3. We've got to get out of that echo chamber and meet everybody else. But it's also, it can seem complex, right? Because people think they have to understand blockchain technology and cryptography and all these other things. Yeah, if you want to build, you have to understand those things. But if you want to get in and understand the tech, then it's just like when I drive my car today. I don't really have to understand all the different intricacies of the combustion engine and how the vehicle operates. I just need to know how to operate it, basically, right? And that's what people
Yeah.
need.
You don't need to understand about the crystals in your computer to understand that you have a flat screen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need, like, there's so many things that we could be like, wow, I just use that every day and I never even realized how complex it was. Right. That's the whole point. That's what we're getting. That's what we're shooting for. So, yeah. But and that's like always a conversation inside the industry too, right? More infra, less infra, right? More apps, less apps, because there is kind of a toss up there about which one is going to get to public consumption first. I think it's apps for sure. I mean, I think we have enough blockchains. There are over 350 blockchains in the last 2 years alone. Like, be for real. Nobody, like, not like this. No, like, that's a lot. So,
But I also tell people, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we do need more builders to build useful tools that people are going to use. That killer app that's going to bring a lot of people into the industry. But at the same time, even some of these niche blockchains, it's not a zero sum game. Like,
yeah,
there's not going to be one winner and
right.
everyone loses, because success and adoption could look different to where this one ecosystem is actually being adopted by this industry sector that sees a lot of use of, like how a lot of benefit, whereas others may see something else. I mean, obviously, what the banking industry adopts is not going to be the same that everywhere else is going to adopt as well. So that's kind of the,
That's true.
yeah. So it's definitely important to, um, but we've got to have more of a direct line between when people build products. They not only need people that understand crypto to try out and test out those products, they also need to do a secondary evaluation of non-crypto people. If they can figure out and use it, then we're getting somewhere, because that's really what it's about. It doesn't matter how great your app or tool or whatever is if people don't understand how to use it.
Yeah, and also if it's not there to be used. I mean, like, let's just, again, just because I just want to always just commit to that honesty that we really are coming out of a lot of smoke and mirrors. You know what I mean? We're coming, I've been describing it like this for like the last 2 years as well, but like truly, it's the end of the Great Gatsby era, right? I mean, it's now time for Gatsby to kind of like get shot, like at the end of the book, where it's like the party has to stop, you know what I mean? Like Daisy has to go back, like to live her life. Like, we need to move ahead. Like it was all cool, it was great, it was a fun time, but like now people have been hurt. You know what I mean? It's getting weird. We just need to like wrap it up and get to. And those are the people that I think in the next 5 years. Because the other thing that's important to keep in context too is that crypto is not even old enough to get a drink at a bar yet, right? It's under
Right.
the ripe old age of 21. It's 16 years old. So if you personify that, there's still a lot of maturity left. There's still a lot of growth left, right? There's still a lot of life experience to go get. And I do think in 5 years, we'll see a much more mature industry. We'll see a lot more, hopefully not all institutional. That's my personal fear. There's been a lot of institutionalism going on, a lot of buying up of, assets which is kind of like so anti the point, right? But hopefully, there is then also to that pocket that real builders and real projects and these things that we're speaking about can kind of push themselves to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Give a chance for your everyday person too to get involved before institutions get a stronghold. And I think that's also the beauty of this technology is if institutions gravitate towards one thing or another, then hey, there's so much other available out there. Like you can go to something new and hip and creative, but and also people realize like I get the question a lot with all these institutions and countries and all buying up all the Bitcoin. Is that a problem? Well, no matter how much Bitcoin they buy, they're not going to control
So
the network.
much. Yeah, exactly.
Bitcoin more valuable. So that's another view of it. But Keisha, as we start to get towards wrapping up, I do want to give everybody a chance to definitely find out where can they follow you, find out follow your podcast, and get more information on what you're doing.
Yeah, so we are the Fuzzy Cow. You have to say the part, but the Fuzzy Cow everywhere. At the Fuzzy Cow podcast or at the Fuzzy Cow on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. We are available everywhere podcasts are. iTunes or Apple iMusic. I don't know. I'm so old now. I don't even know which which one is which anymore.
Change it.
Yeah, SoundCloud, all of that good stuff. New content comes out monthly. We have our second season debut on February 27th. So not sure when the show airs, but either it will be out by the time you see this or on its way. And again, that'll be featuring also an interview with Wayne as well. From We Are Going to Make It, and that is presented by Octon, as I said. So make sure you check out the Octon app as well. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I'm the MFN editor. Again, have to say the THE MFN editor on everything, everywhere. And yeah, I mean, I would love to connect.
Love that. Love that. One last thing as we wrap up. I love having these conversations because it's you've got that spirit of an educator, same thing as me as well. And so what advice? Someone's listening to this. I mean, our audience is various from crypto curious, maybe been in a little bit or in for a long time. But I like to speak more towards those people that are still trying to get their feet wet, get foundation under. And what advice would you have to people like that?
Yeah, so I would say to anybody that is interested in crypto as a monetary tool, as a financial tool, that if if your traditional financial literacy isn't up to speed, I would say like really kind of focus on that and then get heavy into your digital financial literacy because at the end of the day, your spending habits are going to be the same. I mean, your ability to sustain whatever you gain is going to be the same. So you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation. And when it comes to like learning about digital financial literacy, you don't have to feel the need to do every single thing. There are all types of staking, whatever. Your biggest thing is that you just don't want to end up anybody's liquidity if you can avoid it, right? So you want to just learn how to protect yourself. You want to learn how to make wise investments, and you want to understand that again, a part of investing is that it's supposed to be a long game, and patience is supposed to be a part of this. So I would say avoid anything that feels super quick or like a get rich quick scheme. If you are trying to get into the Web3 or blockchain space, as a creator, as a thought leader, as just a community member, we're here all over the world. There are 7,000 doors anywhere you look. You can go through one, and somebody will be there willing to guide you and lead you. But again, same thing with that. Do your research. Understand and know who these communities are. And don't feel like you can't be a part of it because we have so much left to do that there's still room for every single body. So
Well said. Look, I think I want to give a dozen amens during that talk. During that, definitely, definitely great stuff. Keisha, thanks again for joining us
Thanks,
today. It's been
Danny.
great. Looking forward to running to you at another event soon. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Bye.